There may be one or two other people who will join us today. We'll see. David, do you have a reading to
Yes,
enlighten us?
yes, I do. Would you like me to do it now?
Please,
Oh,
please.
my reading today is from, I believe it is possibly the most beautiful words in English ever to reach paper, with the possible exception of anything that Shakespeare wrote. This is from Thomas Gray's Elegy, written in 1751. And, those of us who are familiar with it notice that he leaves the world to dark with darkness, and to me, refers to the depression of darkness. But I don't share that. I think that darkness comes every night after sunset, and we get into the era of the evening, and we the stars come out, and I can't think of anything more positive and life affirming than the stars coming out at night. Here it goes. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Thank you very much, and back to you, Rabbi.
Thank you, David. I would share with you the notion that many people see darkness approaching as a time of fear and confusion, but others see it as a time of wonder.
Yeah, I,
And right, the Jewish tradition has there's this phrase, and then they use it in halachic differentiation of bein ha'arbaim, of exactly between the eventides, I suppose.
That's
Between the evenings, and I think that's a reference to the fact that you have to kind of shift your focus
mm,
from initially, of course, obviously, the people who didn't, they didn't know, they didn't know that the sun was going to rise the next morning, and so the, they were afraid at the dark. And then once we understood that that's part of God's order and pattern, then there was so much there to be inspiring.
yeah.
So, okay. All right. Good, good, good.
And
Yeah,
I recently heard in my wonderful podcast the issue that we have to pay attention that in the Bria, in the creation, the darkness was created, is not a result of. So it's something, if you want to say, it's godly. It's part of what it is.
Mhm.
It's like the good and the evil both were created. Anyway.
No, that's true, true, true.
uh, dark darkness is really the absence of light. Okay, and what can be done in the dark is actually spectacular. And I would say this: uh, when I was doing my consulting work concerning music and entertainment, I used Las Vegas as a model because if you can see, and I'm now taking it to present day, what can be done in the dark, you just take a look at Las Vegas. Because if you see Las Vegas in the daytime and you see it at night, it's two different worlds. As a matter of fact, all these casinos, they they do their best to create the same effect in the daytime as they have at night. And that's by putting no windows in these casinos where the gambling is going on, but they do their best to create that look. So the darkness has great possibilities, is how you look at it and how you deal with it.
And one thing I would like, on a slightly different subject, I wanted to apologize that last week I got cut off a few times because my computer just hung up on me. And I believe I fixed that problem now, but we'll see. Anyway, sorry about that, but here I am.
Yay.
Pardon me. We love the allergies of Arizona. Okay, all right. David, I think my computer went down for a moment or two last week also. So, all right. All right. Welcome, Donna. Good to see you.
Hold on.
Hi.
How are things up in your mountains?
Ah, very good.
Well, it's 92 here. What is it up there?
Well, actually, it's around a little bit 80. Just spit it out, Donna. I'm looking at the thermometer, but I'm in the shade, and then I go up to the mountains, up 9 or 10,000. It's 10 degrees cooler.
I'm driving to LA on Monday,
Oh,
and it's supposed to be in the high 90s for most of the drive, but once I get west of the mountains, it's going to be in the 60s.
whoa! Take a sweater.
Right. Okay. Our bracha is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. We are beginning the book of Deuteronomy. We had a lengthy introduction last week, and I don't want to summarize everything, but just make one or two comments that this Deuteronomy is seen in the tradition as well as by the critical scholars as Moses's farewell sermon. It's a long sermon, recognizing that the audience, if you will, the congregation or the people, the assembly, are now, because this is 38 years and a certain number of months already after Sinai, so recognizing that the people who are listening to his message are now an entire, almost, except for a few people here and there, they're almost all a new generation. So these are not only the people who didn't experience slavery, but in many cases, these are the people who didn't experience the incidents and encounters that Moses is going to be talking about. So he's putting them into, as he tells the story of what happened to the children of Israel under his leadership since leaving Egypt, he's adding his own little twist on it. And we said last week, some of that may be intentional. Some of that just may be the memory bank of someone who's approaching 120 years old, and some of it may be just the way that it's been handed down through the generations in Moses's in the quotations, if you will. Moses here is referred to. And we talked a lot about this last week. Moses is referred to as Moshe Rabbeinu. Moses is the teacher. He's the guide, as opposed to the military leader, as opposed to the political leader. But he's primarily, in this book of the fifth book of the Torah, he's primarily the teacher, the one who's instructing and guiding the people to the stories, to their heritage, their legacy, as well as to the mitzvot, the commandments that God has given, the way that Moses either interprets them or the way that he remembers them. Again, however we want to however we want to say that, because there are some differences in the way that he presents them from the way that they were originally presented or quoted from God in the earlier books. Moses starts off, if you remember back in Exodus, when God appoints him as the leader of the people, Moses does everything that he can to get out of the job, right? Don't take me. I'm slow of speech. I mean, I've impeded speech, and this I stutter. Whatever it is, he says, I need ish, lo ish devarim anochi. I am not a man of words. And then we get to the book of Devarim, which is almost entirely Moses's words. So it's an interesting pun, if you will, or a play on that. And so the question that I would throw to our group that we have to keep in mind is Moses, is it the fact that through these almost 40 years that he's developed a better skill as a communicator? Or is it that he just has much stronger confidence in God's message and in his personal relationship with God and his ability to be God's spokesman? Okay, so that's kind of an underlying theme that I would throw out for all of us to keep in mind because so much of the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, is talking about the character of Moses, and we get insights and we get criticism and as well as praise at the very end. But is it that he's developed great skill as a communicator, as a teacher, or is it that he now has much more confidence in the message? So having said that, I if anybody wants to ask any kind of question or anything before we get started, otherwise we'll begin with verse number 1.
Well, being a great communicator gives you, I would say, gives you confidence. If you stumble around, it would impede your confidence.
Well, I guess it's chicken and the egg. Which comes first?
Well, back then, I think I don't know, but I don't see it that way. I just see it that the ability to communicate comes from confidence.
Well, yeah, I would agree. Confidence in your role and in your knowledge or familiarity with the topic. But we all know that there are lots of people who can bluster and falsify their way through many messages too.
Yeah.
Donna, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. One of the things I love about the story is that I can relate on some level with the speech impediment and things like that. But if it hadn't have been Moses, or let's say if Moses was able to speak really well, the story would be lost. I need that. Here's an imperfect man who is like, I don't want the job. I can't do the job, but is encouraged and also has the help of Aaron, correct? And having that push up and also to help him with the arms, having his arms up and all that. I like this story because it encourages me, and I'm sure others, that it doesn't matter what flaws you have. There will be God will be there to keep you from sinking. And then you have this other person, you have people to hold you up to help you. And I just love that part of it. So that's it.
Go ahead, Mary, please.
Well, first of all, I love Moshe. I just love him. And one of the reasons I love him is that because he's so human. He's human in everything that happens around him, he reacts. We don't see that on other protagonists of different stories. It might be a rabbi, but what do we know about Abraham? Oh, okay, he served these people, he washed their feet. But inner person, like I did not I did not give birth to these people. What do you want from me? Just so human. So we are able, I'm able to identify with him, with his feelings, and with his actions. So it becomes, as a role model, yes, he's Rabbeinu, he's a teacher, and so forth. But, and he's very, it's so sorry.
You're right.
But that's what I love for Moshe. He is my guy. Yeah.
Gail, please. You're muted though.
Okay,
There we are. There
I'm
we
good
are.
now. So usually if you can hit the space bar, but not this time. Okay. Moses to me is like the reluctant hero, or the reluctant leader. And he had, to me, the innate capability. He had that, but for whatever reason in his childhood and upbringing, he was afraid to express himself. So now that he's called upon to do this, and he believes deeply in it, I think over time he has developed his skill. And like any teacher, you don't start out as the greatest sage in the world. You experiment, you see what works, you see that doesn't work. And I think over the decades, he reached his the pinnacle, if you will, in Deuteronomy. So
There are those who, we know that there are those who really sought to elevate Moshe, to a much higher position. That almost approached worship. But the tradition always stepped in, and said, no, that's not what this story is about, and that's not what the relationship was about, between God and Moses. And so, okay, but we will see over the next several months. We will see how his character is, and I agree with Rabbi Miri, is so human, and his emotions are there, with the frustrations of leading the people, with again the aging process to which we can all relate. Last minute pleas to God, can't I please, I've come so close to reaching my goal. I've done what you've asked me to do. Can't you overlook my mistakes and allow me to enter the promised land? And until the last minute, he's pleading and pleading and pleading, which I think many of us would do too. Back to that phrase: is Moses sameach bechelko? Has he found happiness and contentment in his lot, in his fate, in the portion. There's a great midrash. Miri, you want to do the midrash of Moses coming down and sitting outside the window of the yeshiva?
I don't remember exactly the details. So go ahead. I have another one.
Moses is saying, well, why couldn't I live forever? And why couldn't I live to see the Israelites in the promised land? And why couldn't I live to see the temple being built? And, and all this. And so God takes him by the hand and brings him back down to earth, outside the yeshiva, where Rabbi Akiva or one of the rabbis are teaching, or and da 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 da, and they happen to be teaching the phrases at the end of Deuteronomy of never again did there arise in Israel a prophet like Moses, who knew God face to face, and who was so humble, and such a great leader, and whatever. And God says to Moses that is your legacy. It's much more important than having seen the promised land or brought a sacrifice to the temple.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful midrash of sameach bechelko, of find contentment and pride, and have the term that Michael and David were talking about when we first began, and find the personal happiness in what you have achieved, and brought about.
And we say, Moshe ad Moshe, Rambam,
Right.
lo kam ke Moshe. From Moshe to Rambam, no one was like him.
Right.
And what I like, yeah, we,
Until Moses Israelis comes
yeah,
along.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then he has it.
Until Moshe Dayan, yeah,
Right.
whatever.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if Moshe Dayan has it on his gravestone, but
No.
Israelis does.
Now, the other one was, and we discussed that in Green Valley, the issue that no one knows where he is buried.
Right.
So you cannot go to his grave and worship that. It doesn't become a saint. It doesn't become a saint.
It is said that he died on his birthday. That's what I understand, if that's not right or wrong, that he had died on his birth date. Have you heard anything about that?
I don't remember seeing that, but it's very possible that I mean, again, we don't have any kind of archives, or anything that was written down, but it's not in the text that he died on his birthday, but it's perfectly plausible as a legend.
Yes, and also they say he lived to 120 years.
Right.
Now, is that 120 on today's numbers, or was it on those days and those numbers? And did it carry over? Did those numbers carry over to today as accurate numbers?
What do you think? What do you think, Michael?
What?
What do
What
you
do
think?
you think?
I don't know. I don't.
Nor do we.
I really don't know. It could be. I don't know. But
Obviously, well, certainly there are those who would say, yes, that it was always described that he lived to an extremely lengthy age. Okay. But so did many others, and many others lived longer days or many more years in that counting. One of my Bible professors insisted, whether you want to accept it or not, that a year in the Torah was actually either 3 or 6 months. That a year was actually a season. And depending on where exactly they were living, but given the agriculture and harvesting and planting and whatever. So he said, no, you have to divide everything, not only in age, but also like you talk of the children of Israel wandering in the desert for 40 years. It really wasn't 40 years. It really was only 10 years, that kind of thing. But most people, when they get into that debate, ultimately just have to throw up their hands and say, we just don't know. There are other cultures from the time that have their own systems of annual measurements, and so we just you either accept it or and move on, and just in comparison to some of the other dates and lengths. Did Methuselah live, what is it, 957 years? That seems a little unlikely, at least if a year was by our measurement. But even if you divide that by 4, as my Professor Brichto would say, divide 957 by 4, and that's still very, very, very long.
Michael, in my mind, the issue of the numbers of life is like your mother said to you, Michael, I told you 1,000,000 times to stop doing this. So it's to give a big number just to show it's long time or many times. That's big.
Right. Yeah. And in the reference of what was happening in their particular group or culture or whatever. If they wanted to make the point that Moses, because he was so close to God, that he lived longer than most other people, that number must have had some special meaning for them. We would assume that. Okay, let's look at the text. Someone want to read one verse again, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5?
Sure, I'd be happy to start.
Please, David, thank you.
Okay. We start with Deuteronomy, Barim. These are the words which Moses spoke unto all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the wilderness, in the Arabah, over against Suf, between Paran and Tuphel, and Laban, and Hazeroth, and Dizabhab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb unto Kadesh Barnea by the way of the Mount Seir. And it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke unto the children of Israel, according to all that the Lord had given him in command unto them, after he had smitten Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth, at Edrei, beyond the Jordan, in the land of Moab, took Moses upon him to expand this law, saying.
Okay. So there's where we get the 40 years, right? And he begins this oration on the first day of the 11th month, and will conclude then a month later. So we were joking last week about the typically long sermons that some people, but a month is a very, very long time. The commentators jump in and say, why is it important for Moses to list all these places? And again, the audience or the assembly of the people were not there, so they may have heard heard some stories or have some reference point, but he identifies these 4, 5, 6, depending on whether some of them are synonymous or repeating names. Rashi says that those were specifically, and Moses begins this way intentionally, that those were specifically places that had, my favorite phrase is memory triggers. Okay, that they reminded the people of the history or the stories that happened between the people and God, or the people, the Israelites, and some of their neighbors, and whatever, at some of these places. And Rashi says that Moses chose these places specifically because they were events or moments where the children of Israel disappointed God, and God reacted strongly to the decisions or the words that the Israelites made. Other commentators say, yes, those were places of disappointment and confrontation, but Moses is pointing them out because to show that God and the people reconcile. That it's not the negative, it's that the positive, the response and the reaction after the incident. So again, we're going back to what is Moses's purpose in giving his sermon and giving his teaching and how he's communicating. For example, the commentators, they said that when he mentions the Arava, which is the Jordan Valley and the desert, the rift, the Jordan Rift that goes down, that's where people are complaining that they're thirsty and that they're hungry, and why did you bring us out here into the wilderness to die here? We could have stayed in Egypt. Yam Suf is the Sea of Reeds, of course. And Moses is pointing that out because the people were afraid. They were hesitant to go into the water. How are we going to be saved? Well, we know after the fact that we are. And remember the story of Nachshon, who was the first one who went into the water, etc. The Tophel, Paran, and Lavan were places that referred to the experience of the manna being provided to them when they were so hungry and rebelling against Moses. And Chatzerot di Zahav, we know that word is gold, right? Like from Yerushalayim shel Zahav, but di Zahav there are a lot of people who think that it refers to a place where there's great scuba diving on the Sinai Peninsula, but it's not. It's di Zahav is referring to something with gold, and again, the commentators say that's Moses reminding them of the golden calf. So Moses here is reminding the people of 4, 5, 6 major episodes when the people, and their word is, disappointed God. Rashi leaves it at that, but the other commentators jump in and say, no, the more important message that Moses is doing is to remind the people that even though they were so rebellious, God allows them to continue. There's a reconciliation, just like there is between lovers, between married partners, etc., etc., etc. So that's clarification number one that I want to give when people say, well, why specifically these 4, 5, 6 places? That's how commentators come and give explanation to it. The other thing that I would point out in verse 5, David, you want to go back and read 5 again?
Okay, sure. 5 goes, beyond the Jordan, into the land of Moab, took Moses upon him to expound the law, saying. Okay.
Now, there's a phrase here that we haven't encountered before in reading Torah. Okay, it says that Ho'il Moshe Be'er et haTorah hazot. Miri, you want to try a translation?
Il Moshe. I'm trying to. He was willing. He did it. Moshe. He explained.
Uh-huh.
He interpreted the Torah. The Torah. He
This
was
this
nice
Torah.
to do it.
This Torah, so there's two things. One is the phrase of Ho'il Be'er, that he's willing to make clear, okay? To make, he's not just quoting. Usually Moses says, "Thus said the Lord," right? Okay, thus says, and it's a quote. This is not a quote. He's trying to teach, or he's trying to guide, he's trying to make clear or interpret. Okay, haTorah hazot. This. Now, again, it can't mean the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll, the way that we have it, but
Yeah.
but this teaching.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it would be incorrect to translate it as this law. It's definitely, it's definitely teaching. Okay.
Yeah. It comes from something that's what children do. Mom said, don't do that and that. And you said, why? And they did not get any explanation why they shouldn't murder. It was just a given. In the Ten Commandments, there's just do it.
Mm-hmm.
What I call the Nike way, just do it.
Right. And they accepted it. Now,
They didn't have a choice. Yeah.
Another insight that Moses perhaps, this is only a suggesting, another insight that Moses has developed along with his speaking skills is the recognition that the people need more explanation.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just, listen, people, Shema Yisrael, this is what God said. It's, let me explain what God said. I want to make sure that you understand what the story is, what the mitzvah is, what we're expecting of you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the tradition goes, the commentators go one step further into a practice that becomes very, very familiar, not just in ancient days, but even to the present day, of what's called the Metorgamon, okay, of a translator. The Israelites had, by now, and we've seen this, they had people from other other peoples, other nations, who were now traveling with them through marriage or through being booty from, this, what's the word? Something, spoils of war, and whatever. By Moses explaining all this, he's making all of them understand what's going on as well. That's the way it's understood. So the tradition that comes out of this is that once they started, and this is hundreds of years later, but once they started the practice of a public reading of the Torah in Hebrew, which was on market days, on Monday, Thursday, and whatever, and the Shabbat, there was always someone who stood next to the reader called the Metorgamon, who translated into the common language. Okay,
Yeah.
so that as many people as possible, most people, I can't say most necessarily, but many people did not understand the Hebrew of the ancient sacred text. So someone would translate it into the modern language, the everyday language. And as a result of that, in a sense, and this is simplification, but as a result of that, you have the origin of Aramaic, which is a combination of Hebrew and Greek. Later on you have Ladino of Hebrew and Spanish, Yiddish, combination of Hebrew and German, and it all validates this notion that it was important for everyone to be able to not only hear but to understand. And that all comes out of this phrase that Moses took it upon himself to clarify. And they specifically put in that word there, and we usually just skip right over it in reading it. But it was important to set that pattern for that others who didn't know the Hebrew or didn't know all the background needed this interpretation, needed this clarification.
Now, I'm reading here something that's very important to us as Jews, as our tradition, because when we had people that were not Jewish, many times they would say, well, when I was a Christian Catholic, I couldn't ask questions. You take it as is. And the issue of questioning even the commands is something that it's in our tradition. And it says that it started with Abraham, that says, what if there are 10 people in Sodom and Gomorrah? There is an interaction of negotiating there. And the issue of asking questions is something that keep coming up. That when we get to kosher food, I always get the question, why shouldn't we eat shrimps, And so many times my reply is because it's written. But the question is something that belongs to who we are. And for me is a very, very powerful thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Someone else want to read? Let's do verses 6-8.
The Lord our God spoke to us at Horeb, saying, "You have stayed a long time at this mountain. Start out and make your way to the hill country of the Amorites and all the neighbors, and the Arabah, the hill country, the Shephrath, and the Negev, and the sea coast, the land of Canaan, Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See,
One more, right.
I place the land at your disposal. Go, take possession of the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to them and to their heirs after them."
Okay. Somebody want to put that message into into modern language, into a modern context? What's Moses saying to the people now?
I think he's saying that you've lived long enough, you've wandered for 40 years, you've wandered long enough, it's time to go home.
Do you think that, is he projecting that, or is he prophesying that, or did God tell him, okay, 40 years, Dayenu, now they can move on, okay?
Well, I think so. I think he's, Moses, by this time, after 40 years, has learned that he is making the word of God understandable to his people. And he's doing his very best to do that. So I think, yes.
So was it his decision, or God saying, okay, time to move, time to progress?
Well, my guess is that it would be God who's saying that to Moses, and Moses is interpreting that for the people. But I might be wrong. No.
I won't hold it against you. Okay. Right. Okay. No, actually, in verse 6, Moses says, Adonai said this. Okay, that he's quoting Adonai,
Mhm.
right? The Lord our God said, okay, you've stayed here long enough. You've fulfilled requirement number one. Criteria number one. That which we'll see a specific a phrase that identifies criteria number one is for all those who came out of Egypt to pass away in the new generation. The new generation stop, except for Moses, Joshua, and Caleb. All right. So we've got that. For the first time, if my memory serves me correct, Moses says, Adonai Eloheinu.
Mm.
Okay. The Lord our God. Okay. And again, it's like I'm trying, and maybe it's because I have an orientation call it as a preacher, if you will, but or certainly as a public speaker, that he's trying to find every possible opportunity to connect with his audience. Right? So it's not, the Lord with whom I spoke. Da, 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 da. It's the Lord our God. You and I, we're in this together. Adonai Eloheinu. Okay. A little bit later on, he's going to say, it's also related, but it's the land that was sworn to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as opposed to previously, Adonai or Elohim was referred to as the God of your fathers. But I see this as a specific tactic, if you will, a verbal tactic on Moses's part, that hey, yes, we can now move on together. God wants this from all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Gail?
Yeah,
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
And we have that God
Okay.
says, I shall dwell among yourself. So they
Right.
know that it belongs to them as well. Um, uh, just as a side, when one of the things that we as a Jewish people, is recognize that others have other gods. It's not that our God is one, our God is special, etc., etc. But as people, we recognize that some other people have God. And actually, it's very clear when we see that Moshe says, well, in the name of God, to kill everyone so we don't worship their gods, that we don't start it there. But the issue of we have, but you also can have. We don't like you to move to do them, but it exists. So I think it's an important point for who we are today, especially. That there are wars among gods. At home we said, my God is better than your God, and let's fight it, but accepting that this is Eloheinu, this is ours.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And Gail, I want to get to you, but I just want to add
Oh,
this
I'm so sorry, Gabe.
Mary's,
I'm so
that
sorry. Please.
but Moses is going to in 6 or 7 chapters, from now, Moses is going to get to the point where he says, "But Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad." Okay, there
But
is
that's
only
for us.
the one God. So Moses, yes, God recognizes that there are these other gods with a small g. But Moses, I'm telling you the most important thing, the fundamental principle of being an Israelite is to know and believe in the one God.
Right?
Right. Okay. So,
Which can be explained, believe in one God and not in many.
right. Okay. Gail, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to that original thought about bringing it into the modern era. While you were talking, a few things came to my mind. One was telling the Israelites time to move on. It's almost like a rite of passage, their bar mitzvah, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time to move on and
Or
progress.
passing their driver's license.
Yeah, right. Things of that nature. And it also occurred to me as you were speaking, it's, and then it kind of goes maybe a little bit into the idea of one God, is also we have our version of, or their version of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, that will be their which is the Ten Commandments, right? Now to go and take that collectivism forward and go find the promised land, or I live at the moment with this because I haven't read this in a long time, so I'm in the moment of what you're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems that now that you've mentioned about the one God, but to first say Eloheinu, to me, that's when it occurred to me. It's sort of like, okay, now we've written the Constitution. It's beyond the Declaration of Independence. We have declared ourselves as a collective, and this is what we believe in modern terms.
Yeah. Donna, do your thing. Then I want to come back to something that Gail said.
Oh, okay. A couple of things. I think it's interesting that you have stayed long enough at this mountain. And
Right.
it started out with the mountain, right, with Moses. And for this to be it's time for you to move on, for it to start there and then to kind of end there, and now they're going out.
Yeah, because there's both there's positive, there's revelation.
Right.
At Mount Horeb and Sinai are the same. It's the same place. It's the same mountain. Just a different name. Now they call it Jebel Musa, Mount Moses. But so there's positive and negative memory. Again, my phrase, memory trigger. There's receiving the Ten Commandments or receiving the entire Torah, whichever way you want to see it. But there's also the golden calf.
Right.
Okay, so there's great exaltation and celebration, but there's also great disappointment and pain and anger and punishment. So that is a major, when you think of the experience of the people going back to just before the Exodus, the Israelites, they were slaves, but they had to encounter the plagues in Egypt also. So it goes from pain and suffering into and then the fear of, can we cross the water? And then, yes, they do cross the water and celebrate and whatever. And then they need the manna because they're frustrated and hungry and thirsty and whatever. Then they get to Mount Sinai and there's the excitement and the thunder and the lightning and then boom, and then all of a sudden there's the golden calf and now they're in trouble. And it's up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. But ultimately, and it's a couple of verses farther ahead, it's actually, I believe in chapter 2, that Moses says, but there is redemption. We acknowledge that we've had this we've had this this cycling up and down and up and down and up and down. But there is redemption. And in the end, God will support you and bless you and bless all of us. And and you can kind of hear Moses saying, "Do I really believe this?" Because God's insisting on keeping that punishment for me, but He wants me to tell the people that they will all be rewarded. So
Yes.
I don't know. So I have to go back with a little rabbinic personal aside when Gail, when you said it's kind of like they're reaching milestone bar mitzvah. I haven't thought of this in years because I haven't really been involved with too many bar mitzvah kids over the last 6, 7 years. But I used to explain to the 12-year-olds when they were starting their process to study to become bar bat mitzvah. I used to say, so what age, this is in Michigan, what age do you have to be to get your driver's license in Michigan? And every single one of them knew, they'd say, well, 16, or you can get your learner's permit at 15. At 12, they all knew that, which is astonishing. But I said, yeah. And what is it like? You wake up one morning and there on your nightstand, there's your driver's license or your permit. They said, no. I said, okay, well, what do you have to do? Well, you have to study, you have to learn the laws, and then you have to go and practice a certain number of hours, and then you have to take a test, and then if you pass the test, then you get your license. I said, okay, so think of bar bat mitzvah in the same notion. It's not like you turn 13 and all of a sudden, boom, you're entitled to it. Okay? You have to study for it. You have to practice. And that's where we come in. We, the community, and we, the temple, and the rabbi and the teachers, to make sure that you're ready. The test is the day of your becoming bar bat mitzvah in front of your community, in front of your family and friends. And assuming that you do a great job, and I'm perfectly confident that you will, we then say to you, here is the Torah. We trust you to be our teacher of Torah. We trust you to be the one to lead our worship. And we trust you to be a leader of our people in the front. It's like we trust you to be a driver out on the road. Okay. And I hadn't thought of that parallel that I used to use with the kids in a long time. Since you said that this is like a milestone of becoming bar mitzvah. It is that so Moses is saying to them, is trying to build up their confidence that you've had all these experiences, you've had all these practice sessions, if you will. Now it's time to go and live it. Now it's time to bring everything that you've learned into the promised land, which is your legacy, which is your possession.
It's a combination of preparation. It's a whole
Right.
prep.
You can't it's not coming automatically. It's not like you wake up one morning and boom, it's yours. Michael, do you want to say something more?
I wanted to ask a question because I can't remember when Moses died. Where in the Torah is it about the burial of the Israelites bury Moses?
The very last paragraph. The very last paragraph.
The-
Right.
At what portion of Deuteronomy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
At the very last paragraph. The second or third last sentence is that the children of Israel mourned for Moses for 30 days. No one knew. No, to this day, no one knows exactly where his burial place is. And then, as Rabbi Miri was quoting, and never again has there arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses who knew God face to face and who performed all these wonders and the wondrous deeds in the face of all Israel. They call Beit Yisrael, call Bnei Yisrael. Chazak v'nit chazek.
It was not in the promised land. Yes and no.
No. Still on the east side. It's on the east side of the Jordan, Mount Nebo. Which they can identify the mountain, but not a particular burial site on the mountain.
Uh,
Go
I
ahead.
would like to
Go ahead.
mention something that's connected with, as you know, with etymology of the language used here is urshu, inherit. That's on verse 8. Are we there yet? It says, go and inherit the land that I swore, etc., etc. So we have the word inherit. So when you inherit something, it belongs to you. It has been said that you're going to get it. When your father is dying, this is yours. So
It's a
then I went
it's a
to,
Yerusha.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to Bereshit, to Genesis. And what God said to Adam is, Kivsha uredu. And it says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and dominate it. And here is a kind of a different thing to say. You don't have to go to this land just and conquer it and then it's yours. You deserve it. It's yours, etc., etc. And today, if we come to today, I think the death notion is a very controversial and it's very difficult to swallow by other people. And I think that those that are super observant and or they regard themselves that way said, well, it's ours. God gave it to us. So we have here both things. When it's with the animals, it says, conquer them and rule over them. But here it does not say. It says urshu, just inherit. And it's not conquer and it's not, although we know very well, we read before in Bamidbar, in the previous parasha, how many wars we went through to get that land. So there is a dichotomy between what they were said now and what happened before, how we slaughter everyone that was there. Just to notice.
Yeah, I think they would say that when we're talking of Adam in the initial story of creation, um, it it's it's not talking so much about the a populated, if I can use the word civilized, area. So
Yeah.
right, it's but yeah. So that we would use different words, I think, different terminology in English too, and in describing the differences. But yeah, but I think a key phrase is what you said when you said that you've earned this. It's not just an automatic inheritance. It goes along with, to earn to earn it and take possession of it, because God can very easily take it away.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
thank
So
you for
we went through 8. My notes would say we should go 9 through 16.
I'll
No,
go.
no, wait. No, I'm sorry. 9 through 18.
Ooh, okay. Um, Therefore I said to you, I cannot bear the burden of you by myself.
This is Moses speaking. Right. Okay.
Right. I cannot bear the burden of you by myself. The Lord your God has multiplied you until you are today as numerous as the stars in the sky. May the Lord, the God of your fathers, increase your numbers 1,000-fold and bless you as he promised you. How can I bear unaided the trouble of you and the burden and the bickering? Yeah. Pick from each of your tribes men who are wise, discerning, and experienced, and I will appoint them as your heads. You answered me and said, what you propose to do is good. So I took your tribal leaders, wise, experienced men, and appointed.
Incidentally, God tells them to pick wise, discerning, and experienced. So I took tribal leaders, wise and experienced men, and of course the commentators pick up and said, "Oh, guess he couldn't find anybody who was discerning
Okay, yeah.
because he left it out." Okay, right, all right.
Okay, let me get back here.
Sorry about that.
And that's okay. So, so I took your tribal leaders, wise, experienced men, and appointed their heads over you, chiefs of thousands, chiefs of hundreds, chiefs of fifties, chiefs of tens, and officials for your tribes. I charge your magistrates at that time as follows: hear out your fellow man and decide justly between any man and a fellow Israelite or a stranger. You shall not be partial in judgment. Hear out low, high, alike. Fear no man, for judgment is God's. And any matter that is too difficult for you, you shall bring to me, and I will hear it. Thus I instructed you at that time about the various things that you should do.
Okay.
That's a bunch.
It's a bunch?
I mean, that's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, the assumption is that the people who are listening, the people are familiar with this judicial system. Okay, if we want to call it that, or administrative system, that there are heads of the tribes, that there are judges who are appointed, that there are leaders by tens and by hundreds and by thousands, and there's a hierarchy and there's a structure. So Moses is just validating that and saying, this originally came from God when I said, I'm burned out. I can't do all this by myself. And so God, and of course there was a guy named Jethro who helped him along the way also. God said, okay, let's set up this system. And then once you have the system, don't forget to demand impartiality and demand, fairness and tzedek and righteousness from these judges. Okay, tzedek tirdof, righteous, just, you have to pursue righteousness and justice. So where's the phrase? You cannot be partial in judgment. Hear out low and high alike. In verse 17, and this gives. I forget exactly which tractate of the Talmud it's in. I think it's in Nezikin. Torts and damages, but it gives the structure of how court procedures are to follow, and that if the court's ruling is only valid if both defendant and accused have spoken in each other's presence. If one of them is not present, then the case is thrown out. Things like that. So that there's a whole bunch of stuff that Moses is telling the people, we have this system, this is where it came from. That kind of stuff. Anything else with it? You said it was a lot, Donna, so if there's something you want to go back to, tell me. Okay, all right. Starting with 19. Now this goes then through the end of the chapter, and this is a summary, a recounting, or Moses' recounting of the story of the spies, which we had, I don't know, probably about 3 months ago. We talked of Moses sending the 12 spies.
Yeah.
Okay, so that starts at verse 19. Gil, you want to do some reading, or should we go back to David or whatever?
Yeah, I don't have a book, I'm afraid.
Okay. David, you want to go back at 19?
Sure, 19 until,
Until the end of the chapter, I guess.
whoa, okay.
Whoa. You can
Deep
do it.
breath.
I have trust in you.
And we journeyed from Horeb and went through all that great and dreadful wilderness which ye saw, by the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said unto you, ye are come unto the hill country of the Amorites, which the Lord our God giveth unto us. Behold, the Lord our God hath set the land before thee. Go up, take possession, as the Lord, the God of thy fathers, hath spoken unto thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. And ye came near unto me, every one of you, and said, let us send men before us, that they may search the land for us, and bring us back word of the way by which we must go up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do we remember it as that the people came to Moses and said, let's send spies? Is that the way we remember it?
I don't know. I think it might be that it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think I meant to mark the I meant to mark it in my book. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. It is Numbers chapter 13. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelite people, one man from each of their ancestral tribes. Why did Moses change it? From God told us to do this to now not only, but he emphasizes it. Kulchem, all of you came to me and said, we should send out spies.
Hmm.
We can go on reading this to see if there's anything else in the way that he tells the story that gives us a hint as to why he changed what happened.
Okay, and ye came near unto me, every one of you, and said, let us send men before us, that they may search the land for us and bring us back word of the way by which we must go up, and the cities unto which we shall come. And the thing pleased me well. And I took 12 men of you, one man for every tribe, and they turned and went up into the mountains and came unto the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. And they took of the fruit of the land in their hands, and they brought it down unto us, and brought us back word, and said, good is the land which the Lord our God giveth unto us. Yet we would not go up, but we rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God. And ye murmured in your tents, and said, because the Lord hated us, he hath brought us forth unto the land of Egypt to deliver us unto the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Whither we are going up, our brethren have made our heart to melt, saying, the people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to heaven. And moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakim there. Then I said unto you, dread not, neither be afraid of them. The Lord is your God, which goeth before you. He shall fight for you, and according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where thou hast seen how that the Lord thy God bore thee, as a man doth bear his son, in all the way that we went until ye came unto this place. Yet to this thing ye do not believe the Lord your God, who went before you in the way to seek you out a place to pitch your tents in fire in fire by night, to show you by the way ye should go, and in the cloud by day. And the Lord heard the voice of your words, and was wroth, and swore. The Lord swore, that's something interesting, saying, surely there shall not be.
That's swore in the sense of made a vow, made a promise, not.
And the Lord heard the voice of your words, with which and was wroth, and swore, saying, surely there shall not one of these men, even this evil generation, see the good land which I swore to give unto your fathers, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him will I give the land that he hath trodden upon, and to his children, because he hath wholly followed the Lord. Also the Lord was angry with me for your sakes, saying, thou also shalt not go in thither. Joshua the son of Nun, who standeth before thee, he shall go in thither. Encourage thou him, for he shall call Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones, that ye said should be at prey, and your children, that this day have no knowledge of good and evil, or evil, they shall go in thither, and unto them will I give it, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn you, and take your journey into the wilderness by the way to the Red Sea. Then he answered and said unto me, we have sinned against the Lord. We will go up and fight according to all that the Lord our God had commanded us. And ye girded on every man his weapons of war, and deemed it a light thing to go up into the hill country. And the Lord said unto me, say unto them, go not up, neither fight, for I am not among you, lest you be smitten before your enemies. So I spoke unto you, and ye hearkened not, but ye rebelled against the commandment of the Lord, and were presumptuous, and went up into the hill country of Texas to see the eclipse of the sun. That just okay. And the Amorites that dwell in that hill country came out against you and chased you as bees do, and beat you down in Seir, even unto Hormah. And ye returned and wept before the Lord. But the Lord hearkened not to your voice, nor gave ear unto you.
Thank
So
you. That's a lot to read. Thank you, David.
one more verse. So
No,
ye,
that's right. It has the verse 46, right? Okay.
so ye abode in Kadesh many days,
Right.
according to the days that ye abode there.
Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. So there's a lot more detail to what happens after the spies, the scouts, however we want to translate that, after they come back. All right. Now,
Ta-dam.
what does that mean? So now again, this is Moses telling people who weren't there. Okay, this is Moses telling like his side of the story, or what he remembers, or what he thinks the best way is to teach them, to teach this new generation, and to give them confidence, courage, al tirave al tichat, be not dismayed, be not afraid, whatever. So he's deciding what the best way to tell the story is. Is it revisionist history? Or as I was saying in the introduction, or is this kind of the failing memory of an older man? Is his telling the story a little different way? Is it purposeful? Is it just the way that he has convinced himself to remember it? I mean, we all do that. We all think of, and any kind of experiences, even major experiences in our lives. And when we were significantly younger, and we experienced it one way, and now with the with the perspective of many years afterwards, we see it in a different light. So back to the initial question of whose idea was it to begin with? Okay, the classical way of explaining the difference, because in Numbers it says God told us to do this, and in Deuteronomy here it's the people came to Moses and said, this is what we should do. Okay, the classic way of saying is that it originated with the people, and God then asked for then Moses then asked for God's sanction. The people want to do this. What do you think? And God says, I think it's a good idea. Go ahead, send the 12 spies. So that's not, I mean, they resolve it that way. But then, well, again, I would say put this into our own modern lingo. What happens? The 12 spies come back. They come back from the Wadi Eshkol, which and you hopefully you've seen that picture, because it's the symbol of the Ministry of Tourism in Israel, where the people the men are walking, and they've got this huge cluster of grapes, between them, and whatever. And Joshua and Caleb said, they're strong, they're big, but we can attack them. God's on our side. And the other 10 say, no, we're grasshoppers compared to them. We can't do it. And, God is taking us there to punish us. What should we do? So then what happens? What's the remainder of those 30 verses that David just read for us?
I think that going back to your original question there, is that if all the people came up to Moses and said, let's send spies into the land. All the people apparently came up with the same idea at the same time, and they all ran up on their motorcycles to Moses, and they took their laptops and they said, this is what we should do. Maybe it's that God gave them that idea to bring to Moses. So if that's the case, then there would not be a conflict between what Moses said in his speech and with what happened in Numbers.
Okay.
You do something that God tell you what happened. When you don't do something that you are supposed to do, what happens?
And if God knew what was going to happen, why did God allow them to do this? But then again, why did God allow them to go into Egypt to begin with? So okay,
Right.
go ahead, Donna.
Yes. With it being rewarded, putting the responsibility on the Israelites that God had come to them, or they came up with this idea about the 12 spies. That is a kind of a twist. It's sort of like, okay, so you came up with this idea and you're responsible for this.
Mm.
And yet even though you came up with this idea, you still don't follow God. There's that. It still wasn't, even though the idea came out of your mind, it still isn't proof to you.
So if the, we have what should I call it, like scenario or model, Aleph and model Bet. Model Aleph is God says to Moses, appoint the scouts, send them out, and whatever, as a test of the people's bravery, confidence, foresight, vision, faith, whatever. Okay. Scenario Bet, the other one, is that the people come to Moses and say, we should do this. But what's their motivation? Why did they think that we should do it? They're not doing it. They're not suggesting to do it to test their faith, bravery, courage, military might. Why do they want to do it?
Well, it seems to me, going back to what you had originally said about going, the bar mitzvah thing, is that they're going from directly.
Yeah, and David wants to include motorcycle license.
Yes, I like
as
that.
driver's
Yes,
license.
yes.
Right. Okay.
Scooters.
Yeah.
Well, going from being directed and staying around the mountain for 40 years, and then in the storytelling where they now take the initiative, where they're now in charge, doesn't say that they're not believing in God and not being directed, but it seems, again, another change, another rite of passage where they are now going forth and directing themselves and taking charge of themselves.
For me, it's a matter of them perhaps not trusting God or Moses. Let's us take over this and send these 12 spies.
Well, okay. I just want to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
With one thing again. This is the way Moses is telling the story.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. A couple years, well, more than a couple. I mean, many years after the fact. So, intentionally, why is he rewriting, telling these children of or grandchildren of the people who actually experienced it, why is he telling them that it happened this way as opposed to the narrator who told us that it happened a different way?
Well, that's what I mean, is it seems to me he is giving this generation their agency.
Their agency? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And is it approvingly?
I'm not sure what approvingly.
I mean, is he, so he's telling them that given this experience and given this history, it's okay for the people to come up with such an idea and bring it to me?
Yeah.
That's
they've got to go.
okay.
Yes.
So if you had to summarize the lesson that he wants them to learn, this new generation, and if, as I said, my context for Moses in this book is as a teacher, okay, as a guide. So what is the lesson that he wants them to take from today's study, today's curricula, today's agenda item on the curricula is the story of the spies. And let me remind you what happened. Okay. Now, so what's the lesson that he wants them to leave with
Hmm.
and go forward with?
Making their own decisions or independent of Moses.
There's no right or wrong. So
Yeah.
No,
right,
yeah.
Oh, there's not,
is how
yeah,
we see it,
yeah.
that it's okay for the people to
Question.
have a
The
say
quest, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
in their future.
Yeah. This is their independence of.
Mhm.
They're going out and seeing, yeah. It sounds like an exciting time. I don't know if I'd want to be there.
But at this point, I think that in this book is a reminding, is recounting. So
Right.
one of the things recounting is, do you remember what he did in in the desert? God did this and this and this. So what do you think? That's not going to be okay here? It's just questioning based on the presidencies that happened before. And I think that that's something that God get upset with, so is Moshe get upset with. At the same time, we do know that this land was pretty ochelet yoshvea, devours the people living there, and there are big people there, and there are strong people there. So, when both groups come back, both of them are right. Um, seeing both sides.
There's a theme, another theme, although I think I may have alluded to it earlier. There's a theme that seems to run through much of Moses's teachings, if you will, is that out of these experiences, out of these episodes, out of these generational stories, um, um, you can see that when the people Moses is saying to the present generation, talking about their parents, their grandparents, okay, that when they didn't have faith, when they didn't have courage, when they didn't have hope, when they didn't have optimism, it brought about shame, it brought about punishment, it brought about loss, it brought about death. And that's a part of their history, a part of their reality. Um, on the other hand, when the people did repent, when they did listen to Moses, when they did listen to the word of God, then there was blessing and triumph. Okay, so there's good and there's evil. There's blessing and curse. There's defeat and there's success. And you can only have the right balance, I guess, and feeling about the success if you acknowledge that there have been the defeats and the mistakes and the times when you made the wrong turn in the journey. The time when you disappointed God, or you shamed yourselves, whatever it might be. I think here that so much of the story, the early story, the way the narrators wrote it, and which would mean that the way that the storytellers passed it from generation to generation focused on the Joshua, Caleb, and focused, on those who were successful, rather than, like Gail was saying, the agency and the responsibility that all the people had, that they bought into the report from the other 10. That they easily accepted that, and it was a step backwards as opposed to a step forward. And again, Moses as teacher, Moses as the one who's trying to motivate and energize this new generation, says, but we can't just fluff over these other moments. He acknowledges it himself. We made some wrong decisions. Okay, we blew it. We had an opportunity and we blew it. We need to acknowledge that so that we're much better prepared to move on ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah. Also, it was the majority that came back. There was only 2, right?
Right. It was 80%.
Right. And so for me, that's a lesson in just because a majority says this doesn't mean it's the truth or anything. But to step out of a majority, 80%, and say, no, this is, that takes a lot of faith and courage in and of itself. So I find that interesting too. It wasn't the majority.
Right. So again, it's going back to, if we had to identify what's a core lesson.
Okay. Yeah.
What's a core lesson, you can throw in there is, don't necessarily follow the majority, because they're not always right. Okay. And Moses is doing what he thinks, and of course he makes mistakes too, but that Moses is doing what he thinks is the right thing to strengthen the confidence of the people. Again, there's that phrase, al terah al techat, do not be afraid, do not be dismayed. We're going to move forward. It might be 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but we're going to move forward. That's what God wants us to do, recognizing that we're mortal, recognizing that we're human, but we can't let those mistakes or those bad times be the ultimate determination of our future. We have to look forward to what, like Rabbi Mary was saying, to the Yerusha, to the inheritance, to the possession.
Although I remember that, I don't know if it's Pirkei Avot or Talmud. This is in brackets, okay? It's not, that's what comes to my mind. אחרי רבים להטות, או כל המון ככל שדי. So later on, we press into the majority. What's the role of the majority?
Do not follow the majority in paths of evil. Right? Or to do not follow the majority to sin, kind of thing. Okay, which of course stands in opposition to al tifros min hasibur, of don't remove yourself from the community. So no.
We find it all the time. Yeah.
Right. Where do you go? Okay. All right. Okay. Let's do a little bit in chapter 2. We still have a while, and then I don't know if we're going to get all the way up to where I wanted to do some extra comments, but we'll see. So, Michael, you're back. Do you think you can read a little bit, or rather not? You're muted, but
I had to rest my eye.
sure.
So I can do a little bit, but not. I'll do a little bit.
Okay, we're chapter 2. Why don't you go like to verses 1 through 8?
if I could do that. Okay. Thus, after you had remained at Kadesh all that long time, we marched back into the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds, as the Lord had spoken to me, and skirted the hill country of Seir a long time. Then the Lord said to me, you have been skirting this hill country long enough. Now turn north and change the people as follows. You will be passing through the territory of your kinsmen, the descendants of
Esau.
Esau, who will live in Seir. Though they will be afraid of you, be very careful. Let's see where we are. Not to provoke them, for I will not give you of their land so much as a foot can tread on.
Yeah, they're your cousins, so don't, right? Okay.
I have given the hill country to Seir as a possession to Esau. What food you eat, you shall obtain from them for money. Even the water you drink, you shall procure from them for money. Indeed, the Lord your God has blessed you in all your undertakings. He has watched over you, wandering through this great wilderness. The Lord your God has given you, God has been with you these past 40 years. You have lacked nothing. We then move on away from your kinsmen and descendants of Esau, who live in Seir, away from the road of the Arabah, away from Elath and Ezon Geber. And we marched on into the direction of the wilderness of Moab.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a place to stop talking about the relationship with Esau, that's the Edomites. They're cousins, and again, whether there's importance or not for present day, but God makes it very clear that the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, are entitled to their land as well. Okay, and the Israelites are not to conquer it; they're not to try to take it from the Edomites. What food you obtain has to be purchased. Water or any other supplies has to be purchased, and I want to see a good commercial interaction between the Israelites and the Edomites, is what God is saying. And today we would say, and halavai, that should be the case. Right. Okay, then they move on. So let's do 9 through 15. And that's as much as we'll go today, I guess. Donna, can you want to read for us? 9 through 15?
Okay. And the Lord said to me, do not harass the Moabites or provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession. I have assigned Ar, is it Ar? Ar? As a possession to the descendants of Lot. It was formerly inhabited by Emin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. A people great and numerous and as tall as the Anakites. Like the Anakites, they are counted as Rahim, but the Moabites call them, oh gosh, Emin. Similarly,
Yeah,
Sarah,
you can imagine. I mean, joking aside,
yeah,
but we talk of Joe Biden getting mixed up in the names of all the places and the names of the presidents and the vice presidents and this and that. Here's Moses doing all of the names of these places and the leaders and the kings and whatever. Okay.
Yes. Similarly, Seir was formerly inhabited by the Horites, but the descendants of Esau dispossessed them, wiping them out, settling in their place, just as Israel did in the land they were to possess, which the Lord had given to them.
Keep going. Go through the end of 15.
Okay. Up now, cross the Wadi Sered.
Wadi. Yeah.
Wadi. Okay. So we crossed the Wadi Sered. The time that we spent in travel from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed the Wadi was 38 years, until that whole generation of warriors had perished from the camp, as the Lord had sworn concerning them. Indeed, the hand of God struck them to root them out from the camp to the last man.
Okay. All right. So in other
Wow.
words, at this point that's the end of the generation. It says of the warriors, which means of the adults, but that all of that generation after 38 years, they have all died out with the exception of Moses, Joshua, and Caleb. Okay, that's officially that's the end of that generation. So now really we start with an entirely new history, so to speak.
Good.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, and I'm going to suggest that that we end there. Miri, you're going to lead the group next week, right?
What date is that? Um,
The 15th?
the 15th. I'm here, the 15th, I'm here.
Okay, because I'm not. So I'm
And
at a
it was
family.
a
No,
date,
the 14th, not the 15th, 14th.
the 14th is the big demonstration.
Yeah.
Are you going?
What a question.
They're having it up in Pine Top. I'll be here.
Oh, I'm sure they're having it in Pine
I'm
Top.
really serious.
Cross country.
Yeah, it's a very important thing. So,
Yes.
and I don't know the time that it starts. Do you know, Dana?
Well, I
think
don't know for your location.
I think
10.
in Washington it's at the later in the day, I think. But I don't know anything else. I just know that I'm at a family bar mitzvah in Detroit.
Yay.
And you can demonstrate there.
I will be demonstrating with the Torah, right? Okay.
Yeah, do a drush about it.
Yeah.
So are we saying, should we continue next week or skip a?
I wish I knew when if it's in the evening in Washington, it's 3 hours late here.
3?
So it'd be in the afternoon. Well,
Right.
Maybe we should e-blast, find out exactly, and then send out.
And we'll send the message.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, Mary.
And I apologize because it's a very important thing for me.
Yeah, you just let me know.
Okay.
And then as long as you let me know, through an email or whatever,
Okay.
let me know no later than Wednesday.
Okay. It will be even earlier. Okay, I'll do that,
Okay.
Rabbi Norm. I
But-
apologize for.
No, that's okay. But where we are, if you're going to start with the text, or I'll let Marty Cohn know also, is that
Yeah.
we're at chapter 2, verse 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 All right.
And then we decided on one date that we're going to cancel. Was it the 29th?
Going to what?
That we're going to cancel the session, that both of us are not going to be here.
It might be the following. I think that's contingent on how Sue Cohn is doing after her surgery.
Okay, oh, okay,
Yeah,
with
okay.
Mark.
All right, but
Okay.
we can look at it and I can communicate with Mark.
Okay, okay,
Okay,
okay.
all right. Well then, Shabbat
So,
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
and
Thank
thank you
you, and
very much
we'll
to
be in touch.
everyone.
Hope to see you again
Yes,
soon.
yeah, we will.